Well, welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. Let's talk about the quality of building in Uganda. A recent report by the National Building Review Board indicated that over 5,000 buildings in major urban areas do not meet the basic standards, such as approvals following the constructions. Many lack fire safety facilities, while others are put up in prohibited areas, with many more lacking approved architectural plans. With the more buildings coming up, we are forced to ask why we don't take advantage of progress in science to build more durable and progressive structures in that regard. That is the $64,000 question that is going to be dissected by Justus Akankwasa, the Director, KCCA Engineering, and Robert Kiggundu, the Chairperson of Architects Registration Board of Uganda. Well, many thanks for joining us this morning on Morning at NTV.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why is it very, very hard for Ugandans to secure the services of professional engineers, but they would rather go to these other unscrupulous individuals who do not have the expertise in this profession? Is it because they are cheaper? Akankwasa.
I don't think so. I don't think that it's because the population do not know the implication of using people who are not professional. It is more costly to use someone who doesn't know than using someone who knows. Because eventually, if you bring a quack engineer, you're going to end up with a building which is going to collapse. You have seen. That is
the status quo.
And let me tell you, that for the collapsed buildings that we have experienced in Kampala, they were not designed under the supervision of a professional. They were not.
No approvals either.
No approvals either. So you find you are losing billions of money just because you want shortcuts and cheap things. It's more costly. You rather get a professional like architect Kiggundu and a professional engineer to supervise your work. You'll pay them, but it's worth it. So the public should know that people have learned, they have studied these things, and they are there to help and put up structures that are durable.
Robert Kiggundu, these individuals deal with quack engineers simply because they say, well, the process of approvals for construction is also costly and it takes too much time. Is it a costly venture?
Like engineer Justus has just said, I'll start with the cost. The cost is not that expensive, and actually you save when you use professionals. I'll refer to my profession. As an architect, there's something we call space left over after planning, or slope. If I enter a building, I can see a lot of slope. Slope costs you money, but space you're not using. For instance, I could easily come up as a professional architect, I could easily come up with a 3-bedroomed house within 100 square meters. And a quack architect will give you a 3-bedroom house in 150 square meters. The extra 50 square meters are costing you money, and yet you don't need them.
Indeed.
So in a way that he has said, if you use the professionals, it saves you money. Now, is the process long? No. Actually, the process of using a quack is longer. Because I'll tell you something, the engineer will tell you, they do not accept drawings that are not signed or stamped by us, the registered professionals.
I see.
So if you go through a quack,
there is no way I'm going to seek approval.
Eventually you'll still go through us. Those quacks find some unscrupulous architects and engineers, and they stamp drawings for them and sign for them, and they take them to the local authority for approval.
Indeed.
So you've just avoided this person, gone through that one to come back to this person.
Indeed.
So the process is longer.
And that's why we are dealing with so many buildings collapsing in Africa.
Exactly.
So with KCCA experiencing the fastest real estate growth, how are we ensuring that the buildings we are erecting are at par with the architectural standards we are looking at all for, and the building efficacy in that regard? Akankwasa.
Definitely, we to the public, we are sensitizing them to ensure that they follow procedure. There is a whole lot of the building code which has been put in place by the National Building Review Board, and it specifies clearly everything that we need to see in a building. And it's the professionals like architect Kiggundu who know how to interpret that code.
What are the guidelines?
It's quite a lot. It has to do with the foundations, how they should be, the ventilation, how it should be, the accessibility, if it's a public building, to ensure that even people with disability are catered for. So it's a whole lot, it's quite a lot. And a quack architect or someone who is really not professional cannot put these together.
To ensure inclusive access, even for the PWDs.
Exactly.
You go to a building and there are no ramps and so forth. Now that is a quack engineer.
Even where
they didn't factor that in.
Even when they are, I've seen some buildings with ramps in Kampala. They're not usable. Someone with
a ramp that is not used.
Yeah, someone with a wheelchair will just go down all the way and
Never
because the ramp is too steep. So all those things, as the engineer said, are in accord. What size should the ramp be, width-wise? Because some have seen ramps where you cannot even have a wheelchair. It's not wide enough. What should be the level of the slope so that it's not so steep? Because you need this person to roll down nicely, not just, you know, slide down. So all these things require to be done by professionals. Now, some of our friends, the quacks in the industry, when they hear there must be a ramp, they put a ramp. And then you see it's not usable. It's there, but nobody uses it.
Robert, so the recommendations are clearly stated. They are there, clearly stated. This is what we need to be doing. So where is the problem? Is it the implementation of the guidelines and so forth? Is it the enforcement of the guidelines? Where is the problem when it comes to adherence to the same?
The biggest problem we've had in this country is historical. We didn't have a firm base of architectural designers or architects until about 1989, when we had a School of Architecture in this country. We didn't have a law regarding practice of architecture until 1996.
I see.
How was that void filled? At first, there were many people, Indians and Europeans, who were doing this job and were doing it well. Then they left during their main turmoil. Another void. And another void was created. We had people in the built environment to try and fill that void. These are the draftsmen. A draftsman, for viewers' information, is like a nurse to doctor. A draftsman is the nurse and the architect is the doctor. So a draftsman knows about producing designs, but not fully, because they study for 2 years. And an architect studies for 5 years. So we've got that void being filled by the draftsmen. We've got that void being filled by fellow built environment professionals like engineers. An engineer knows about the building, but he doesn't go into the details of knowing what's the space, what's the chair, what space do we need to have a chair, what space do we need to have a table, what should be the height of a bed. They don't go into those details. So in filling that void, the whole standard of architectural practice was lost. And as it was lost, there's also the word of mouth. So people started talking, oh, who did your house? So and so did my house. So since 1996 that we got the law and the Architects Registration Board was put in place, we have been trying to do what we call sensitization and awareness, creating awareness in the public. And that's why we do programs like this, to try and tell the public that there are people who are qualified and registered to do this work. Please contact them. The other myth that I would like to use this opportunity to dismiss is that they are very expensive. I've heard that several times. Oh, they are there, but they're very expensive. I'll give you a very simple scenario. If you want to register, first of all, there are 300 registered architects in the country, which is admittedly a very low number.
Indeed.
But of those 300, about 100 don't have work. So that means people are building but avoiding them. If you want to register the architect qualified and ask them to do for you a house, I can assure you a qualified registered architect in Kampala can do for you a building, plans ready, submissible to KCCA at about 3.5 to 5 million shillings, depending on how big your house is. Now, I have seen people who have used quacks and draftsmen pay 2.5, 3.5. Then the quack says, but you need a stamp and a signature.
I see.
And then they go to the architect, he charges another 1 million. And before you know it, you're paying 5 million shillings. So why don't you go directly to the person who does the real job? So it's not true that they are expensive. They're there, they can do this work, and some of them don't have the work to do.
Justus Akankwasa, what does this situation mean for areas that are now just starting to see some kind of semblance of real estate growth? I'm talking about areas like Wakiso and other urban areas. This situation whereby we are using quacks against or resisting the usage of experts. What does it mean for these areas that are just starting to see some real estate growth? Meaning these are the areas that might be using many of these quacks.
Yeah, of course, when you have such estates coming up and you're using quacks, then the planning of the area is definitely not proper.
More buildings will be collapsing.
Exactly.
Poor drainage systems and so forth in the wake of climate change.
The entire planning, the way buildings are speaking to each other, I think the architects know better.
Indeed.
It will not come out well. So you find an estate which people have built, but really there is no beauty. There is no, things are not connecting very well.
So there will be real estate growth within these jurisdictions, but not at par as far as the basic standards that we are looking for. Go ahead.
Exactly. So there is a need for the public really to trust the professionals.
Yes, Justice.
It's worth it. Professionals will give you a good job at a good cost, because when you plan better, then the result comes out well. He's given you an example. They know how to design things which are economical, for example. Someone who is not professional will just put things together without even considering the cost of putting it up. So it's worth it to have these professionals on board, and it's a requirement by the law. The whole of the Building Control Act demands that every development should have an architect who is registered and an engineer who is registered. It's a requirement. So going forward, definitely, and even as we go for inspections, yesterday I was in the field.
Indeed.
These are the things we are looking for. And if you do not have a professional on site, definitely we give you a stop order.
Just as part of the reason for where people build is also accessibility. Indeed. Talk to us about the infrastructure plans for Kampala over the next 5 years.
Yeah, infrastructure plans for Kampala. We are definitely going to be improving roads.
I love that.
We have a big project coming under the African Development Bank. A number of roads are going to be rehabilitated. You'll see the industrial area, 6th Street, 7th Street being revamped. And
are you just patching the potholes or just another full institutional revamp?
We are curing the pothole patching disease.
Because pothole patching never works. When it rains, yes, it washes away all the patches.
Yeah, they have the drainage system there. Yeah. The whole infrastructure is outdated.
Indeed.
So we have to revamp it and make sure it is well done for people to connect to their properties very well.
All right, Max Olapo, talk to us about people who build in wetlands and other seemingly affordable areas, the cheapness of these areas. Beyond being very expensive to build there, is there a more compelling reason why individuals should stay away from these jurisdictions, the wetlands?
You've just called Max Olapo. My name is Robert Kiggundu.
Robert Kiggundu. Max already left.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Richard. Robert.
Look, first of all, one of the reasons people build in wetlands is it's always the poor people. I've seen a few poor people, although even the rich ones these days go and acquire wetlands and they start to fill them up. We know that sustainably that is not good. And we are messing with our weather, our climate. We're messing with the lives, the future lives of our grandchildren. That shouldn't be done. But the poor people who end up in these wetlands, they usually end up there because of lack of land. They don't have land. And they go to these places, and it's easier to build there, and they stay there, and of course they are disturbed by the rains, the floods. Just recently, we've just been going through affordable housing and talking about affordable housing. The solution to that is to actually do affordable housing for the poor people. Now, I know that programs for affordable housing, Africa, all over, not only in Uganda, have got challenges. These programs sometimes are, the kind of taken over by the rich people, the middle class again. Namuwongo is one of them. It was meant to cater for the poor people. What happened is that the middle class took it over, and then the poor people relocated in what's now called Soweto, which is lower in the swamp. So, but these are challenges that are all over Africa that we need to look at, because constructing low-income houses that can be afforded by poor people, you have to work with so many stakeholders, including the financiers, including the government of Uganda, including the local authorities, including the poor people themselves, and then the architects have to understand the poor people. How do they? Because I come from those places. I grew up in those places. I I don't care if I cook on the veranda. So sometimes we design houses and we put kitchens, we put these fancy bathrooms. They don't really care. They can have a communal bathroom. Yeah. So we have to think about affordable housing. That's how we avoid the poor people going there. Going back to the rich people, these are doing these things deliberately. The swamp is closer to the city. He wants his mall to be in the city. So he goes, acquires a swamp, starts dumping their soil, and before you know it, he's affecting all the other conditions, environmental conditions around that area.
And some are really well connected.
Yeah, the water is not draining correctly, people are having floods, just as Akankwassa's roads are getting messed up.
All right, Robert Kiggundu and Justus Akankwasa, maybe some final parting shots within a few seconds for Ugandans out there who are not clamoring for the experts. For you, Justus Akankwasa, a few seconds.
Yes, I would like to appeal to Ugandans and especially the citizens of Kampala to embrace the law which is established. The Building Control Act is well established, and they should use the professionals and bring their plans for approval.
Justus Akankwasa
within 30 days,
Robert
approvals can be issued.
Indeed. So it doesn't take time and it's not costly.
If you use the professionals.
Indeed.
Yes.
Robert Kiggundu and also Justus Akankwasa, many thanks for having made the time to speak to us. Of course.
Thank you.
Clamor for the experts. Yes, you might go for a quirk. Yes, you use lesser money, but 5 years or 2 years after building that structure, it will go down. It will be raised down and you lose all those millions. So please seek the services